So welcome, Ronan Pearson, a mini challenge racer. Thank you very much for coming on the show and getting involved. But yeah, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Been a busy start to the year already and kind of back on that wagon and working hard. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Very looking forward to motorsport being back, in particular the Toka package and everything that comes along with that. But I want to start by asking, how did you first become interested in motorsport?
A long time ago, actually. Now, my dad raced when I was incredibly small. He raced in funnily enough, a Mini Cooper in the Scottish Mini Cooper Cup, and then that lasted for a little while, and then I moved into racing karts. I was driving karts on my own when I was kind of 6 years of age, and then was part of some junior championships and stuff from the age of 8. Only in Scotland, but you know what? Looking back on it, it taught me a hell of a lot of skills that I've used since then, since I graduated up into the cars and stuff. So yeah, I raced karts until I was kind of 13, 14, and then stepped up to the Junior Saloon Car Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, you mentioned kart racing. Obviously, you can't really compare the go karts and what you're racing today. But how important is it to use kart racing to sort of learn the craft and everything?
It's it's totally different to being in a car. You don't have any mirrors and stuff. You kind of almost use your sixth sense a little bit. You use your hearing a lot to kind of tell where people are and where to position the cart and stuff. But the bit I loved the most actually was we used to run in the wet with slick tires. So there's plenty of sideways moments. But yeah, it matures you quite a lot as well. I would say so. In my kind of 6 years of karting, it really helped bring me on as a grown up into a young adult, but also to have that kind of mature head moving into car racing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously, you after doing karting, as you said, you went into Junior Saloon Car Championship. What was it that made you choose that series? Because I think it's a brilliant championship. It's kept on growing. But what was it that brought you into it?
For me, I was kind of done with the whole kind of karting scene, if you like. Um, I was quite a tall kid and stuff. So I weighed a bit more than others and things like that. So we wanted to move up into cars, and it was the best way that I was going to progress. I've been hearing from the new team that I've joined. They've got this kind of motto that if you don't move forward, you'll just stall. And yeah, back then we wanted to keep moving forward, to kind of propel me in my early days and take a crack at it and see how I got on really. And the JSCC was the most cost-effective junior championship out there, so it all made perfect sense really.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you find the step up from karts to cars a big one?
Yeah, in quite a few ways, absolutely. I think one of the biggest ways was having that spatial awareness, actually. At my first ever race weekend, I went off in testing and broke my wrist.
Oh, really?
Digging up some memories here, but
Yeah.
it was that kind of transition between sitting in a cart, you're central to the axles and things like that, to then sitting on the right hand side of the axle. I just wasn't fully aware of all my surroundings at that point. And then obviously having to learn to drive at the age of 14, using a clutch and all the rest of it whilst racing. It did take quite a while, as it does with anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose with the Junior Saloon Car Championship, obviously the racing's brilliant, but a good part of it is that you get to learn all of the circuits that you're going to be, going on to do in other championships like the minis now. But did you have a favourite circuit once you started driving them?
Do you know one of my favourite circuits all time is Rockingham, which is a
Yeah,
real shame that
yeah,
we don't go there anymore. I absolutely loved that place. From the outer oval, and then the infield section was just mega. And I did really, really well at Rockingham in the junior Saxo, but also when I raced my first season in the Clio there as well. I ended up with a lap record and stuff, put it on pole, and yeah, that all holds good memories for me. So it's a real shame that we don't go there anymore.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's such a shame, and I think with people that I've interviewed before, often that has been one of the most popular answers. It's a brilliant track, and yeah, it's a real shame. So yeah, you obviously mentioned Clios. That's what you did afterwards. How would you say overall your first season in the junior saloon cars went? How would you sum it up?
Uh, how long ago was that? 6 years, 7 years ago. It was again shaped me really well, matured me really well, and yeah, just taught me it developed my craft a lot more, to have a go at it for a second year. And I think there was glimmers of real positive things in there throughout that season to make us keep going and realize that, I do have something.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So obviously, after your time in the junior saloon cars, you moved into Clio Racing. What was it that made you pick that series?
Well, the team that we ran with back then, Westbourne Motorsport, in my second year in the Saxo, also ran the Clios for a long, long time, on the Toka package as well. So we obviously had influences from that side, but it was the kind of out there with all the budget's one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
But the best place for me to progress was to stay in a front wheel drive car on slick tires. But we didn't have budget to go onto the Toka package. So the Clio series ran as its own kind of championship on the BARC events. So yeah, we chose to go down that route, and honestly, I'm so happy that we did do that. The car was sequential gearbox and things like that as well, because the Clio I race used to be on the Toka package, but then the newer Clio, the Gen 4 model, came out and replaced that. So yeah, it was kind of a feeder series, if you like, to eventually step up to that Toka package.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And how did the car compare to the Citroen Saxo that you'd previously driven in the junior saloon cars?
Well, it was left-hand drive, sequential gearbox, so you didn't have to use the clutch, etc. Only for race starts. Yeah, the slick tires were one of the biggest things, really, for me. The difference in grip levels and stuff, but overall the speed as well, because you were limited to kind of 100 mile an hour in a Saxo, with it being restricted because of our ages and stuff. But yeah, being in the naturally aspirated Clio, it was so raw, and even now I look back on that, I would absolutely give anything for another kind of day in that car. It was just something else.
Yeah. What would you say made those cars so brilliant to drive?
I think it was so kind of stiff, but at the same time loose, if that makes sense, and it reacted to all of your inputs exactly how you expected it to. It's just such a driver's car. There wasn't an awful lot you could do in terms of setup changes and things like that. It wasn't overly complicated to engineer and things like that. And yeah, it came down to who was the best driver behind the wheel, really.
Yeah. And obviously, it must have been nice going into the time in the Clios after obviously sort of learning your craft in the junior saloon cars, and then obviously karting before that. How, I presume you're feeling a lot more confident going into the Clios after spending time in the junior saloon cars.
I was, yeah. And yeah, obviously I developed a lot. And at the age of 16 was when I stepped up. So it was a big thing for me at the time going up against anyone at 16 years of age and over. But I had a lot of good people around me to really help bring me on at that point. So yeah, that ultimately helped me do really well from my first race weekend onwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And how would you sum up your time in the Clio series?
Successful, quite a few lap records, pole positions, a lot of trophies to show for it. And in my second season, I was the Clio Cup Series champion. So really, really successful and really, really strong. And all I wanted to do was win that championship along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, as you say, congratulations, plenty of success in the Clios. That must have been really good for your career, obviously moving forward. When did you start looking into obviously the mini challenge and where you'd go after you'd finished with the Clios?
Well, it was during that kind of second season in the Clio series that we knew that was going to be the last year that championship was actually running. But we always wanted my kind of natural progression up the ladder to take me to the Clio, what was the Michelin Clio Cup UK series, which was racing on the Toka package, and the Gen 4 model. We always wanted to step up to that. But unfortunately, during that year, that was announced that the Clio Cup UK was going to be no longer. But the mini challenge is what was replacing that on the Toka package. So again, we knew that we had to move forward or we would stall. There was nowhere else for me to go. Anywhere else under, out with the Toka package would have been a real sideward step. So yeah, that's when we knew we had to make the step up. And fortunately, with all the right people around me and sponsors and things, that was made a reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously, the mini challenge is a great championship. When you sort of first started going out in the mini JCW car, out testing and stuff, what was it like to drive to start with, and how does it compare to the previous Clio?
I'll give you the honest answer to that, and that's pretty scary actually. The first couple of test days I had, I was completely blown away by it. Before that, we'd bought the car was bought and things like that, and you'd heard mixed feelings from people and some really well-known people, ex-touring, current touring car drivers even that have raced these things and driven them, tested them. I'd heard all these stories that the thing is an animal, it'll try and kill you, and you laugh. But yeah, those first few test days for me I was a bit like, okay, what have we got ourselves in for here? I thought I was at a really kind of good level, if you like, which I was, and a really good confidence, a really well-rounded driver, and I knew everywhere I went in that Clio I was going to be at the front and fighting for pole positions and stuff. But the Mini just requires a different kind of driver. You really have to grab it by the scruff of the neck to be anywhat quick and near the sharp end of the grid.
Yeah, I've spoken to quite a few of the JCW drivers, and they've all said how of an exciting car it is. Difficult to drive. How long did it sort of take to get used to it and get settled with it, or has that still not happened yet? Because
no, it's that happened a little while ago, probably this time last year. I still wouldn't have told you that I was 100% comfortable with it. But 2 years down the line and a really strong kind of second season under my belt with a lot of good positives and podiums and a few strong qualifying performances towards the end of the year. A really strong final few rounds as well of the season. I can definitely sit and say that I'm at a really good place with the Mini. We've moved to the new team for 2022, which I'm sure we'll cover, but I feel really, really confident now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, as you mentioned, I'll mention that in a minute. But I wanted to say, what would you say were your highlights of 2021? Obviously, the season we've just had.
Yeah, 2021 was quite the year. We had 7 weekends, and at round one, I ended up on the podium in race 3 at Snetterton. But there was a real mid-season dip for me, a lot of which was out with my control. But it was only down to my kind of mental attitude and stuff to bring that back for the end of the year, which we finished really, really strongly. The final 3 rounds for me were fantastic. And if I could have been like that all season, I'd have been much further up in the championship. But it's a real merry-go-round. You know, it's you start the year really well, and you just start thinking about the next podium and things like that. But realistically, it's not like that in this world. It's not always going to be plain sailing. But back to your question, off on a tangent a little bit. Highlights for me were my podium. Was my podium at the start of the season, and then we had my home round at Knockhill, racing in front of all my home fans was fantastic. Because that was one of the first rounds we had where we actually had capacity crowds as well. So that was just something else. What a feeling, you know, on that green flag lap for the first time. Not that there's much time to have a look at all that. Another highlight was Donington Park, the whole weekend, apart from race 3, which we didn't even start. The whole weekend was incredible. I was really pleased with my overall performance, and probably raced the best I've ever raced as well. And then where did we go? We had Brands GP, the finale, and just I'd never been on the GP loop before, so it was a real baptism of fire. And we brought that weekend back in the end and finished it really, really well. It started off really difficult, purely because I hadn't been there before. So it was all down to me and trying to get up to speed compared to all the people that had been there and tested and stuff. But we ended up finishing 6th in race 3 there, and then ended up finishing 8th in the championship table overall. So no, there was many highlights and many high points as well as the low points as well.
Yeah, good. It's been, it's great to it's been great to follow the minis. Obviously, last season, I'm looking forward to this season even more. I'd say. Obviously, you're going to be back in the JCWs, but you're also going to be with Excelr8 Motorsport and their new development driver. First of all, when did talk start sort of happening, and how did that really come about?
As an honest answer, the talks began after the Knockhill race weekend for me. You have to get things done early in this game. And if you're not happy or not fully satisfied with things, you've got to sometimes follow your gut and make your own choices and be ruthless. And yeah, we'd only done 3 weekends at that point. 4 weekends. We still had 3 to go. But I knew where I was going to end up before we'd even got to Croft. Yeah, that's the way it panned out.
Yeah. And that, going into the new season, obviously being with Excelr8, obviously now front running team in the BTCC, that must give you lots of confidence going into the new season.
Oh, it really does. The team are just incredible. Every single one of them have got a real passion to win with any of their drivers. And they've got a rich history. So many championship winners, race winners. And yeah, joining them is a real proud moment for me. Probably going to have about 7 other teammates. And they're all going to be really, really good drivers as well. I know a lot of them who are already confirmed. And to be up against these guys within your own team excites me as well. got a lot of respect for most drivers on the grid. So hopefully we can all work together quite well and make it a good season.
Yeah. You obviously mentioned teammates, and obviously Excelr8 are very good in the mini challenge, running lots of cars. How, as teammates, will you be able to, push each other along and help each other? I know you'll be obviously racing against each other, but I'm sure you guys will put data together, I'm sure, and work together.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, we'll all have the data to look at from each other's sessions, and put together the ultimate best lap on the screen, who's better in what sector, and corner per corner, and hopefully we'll all be able to gel really well. And then on track, it can sometimes be tricky, but there are certain circuits that we go to that you do kind of require a tow, and whether that's your teammate or somebody else on the grid, that is sometimes really important, especially places like Donington Park, and then Silverstone National as well. So yeah, a little bit on track, but when it comes to racing, we're all there for ourselves. But at least when you're not on track, all the data and things, everything's out in the open to see, and we all just want to see the best for each other, really.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I won't keep you for too much longer. You've been brilliant so far. Final few questions, really. With your new role with Acceleration Motorsport, what will that involve as their new development driver?
So being part of the young driver program basically means that I'm going to have involvement with the touring car team, getting an added insight into the ongoings of a touring car weekend, being in the garage, looking at everything that's going on, being able to have an insight into what goes on behind the scene as well, in the truck and things like that. And also another string to the bow is having the opportunity to test the Hyundai i30N fastback touring car. Yeah. So that's really, really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely something else to look forward to. I would have thought, would you say British touring cars is the aim for you? Is that somewhere where you want to get to, and what other goals have you got for the future?
No, absolutely. To make it to touring cars is absolutely my aim. It's been what we've set out to achieve since I started in a kart. I loved it so much back then, and that's not changed. My passion and determination to get there has always been the same, or in fact, it's probably grown each year actually. And the mini challenge is the final step for me in my head before moving up to the touring cars. But yeah, the only thing that plays on that is budget.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, but yeah, my goal and aspirations have never changed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something to aim for. And yeah, hopefully one day we'll definitely see that. But obviously, eyes forward to the mini challenge this year, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm sure it'll be another brilliant season. Which is definitely something for us all to look forward to. But thank you so very much for coming on the show for a chat. It's been great to hear about obviously your racing career so far, and obviously to have a look towards obviously the mini challenge this year. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you as well, Louis. Really appreciate your time and a great interview. Especially we're bringing up some memories from quite a while back. So no, thank you for that as well.
Absolutely, no worries at all.